is a special duty to protect consular premises or embassy premises or high commission premises as it is. So first and foremost, the protection of the US Consulate was a duty on Pakistan and Pakistani officials, and clearly that was not fully met. They are subject to their own country's military code of justice, right? So the US military code of justice is what governs US Marines wherever they are in the world. And so if they have violated that code, certainly they could be tried within the military hierarchy there and court-martialed for this. If they feel that a crime took place, that this was not merely self-defense or something along those lines, then they can request or through the Foreign Office request that whatever immunity these Marines have is withdrawn. A deeply unfortunate incident took place yesterday in Karachi where about 10 protesters were shot and killed outside the US Consulate by US Marines who were stationed there as part of its security and to guard the premises, the consulate. It's problematic because one, it's a critical issue, right? These protests were taking place because of the unlawful assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei, who was not only a political leader in Iran, but was also a spiritual leader to many across the globe, including in Pakistan. Now, just to give you an idea of how complex the legal regime is here, is at the international level, you have a number of laws applying the Vienna Convention, diplomatic relations, the Vienna Convention on consular relations. Then you have bilateral agreements between Pakistan and the US that would apply here. And finally, you would have domestic law, Pakistani law, because this was an incident that took place on Pakistani territory, and US law, because these were US military personnel. So just to be able to give you an idea, at the international level, diplomatic relations, consular relations are governed by the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations or the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. And they accord certain levels of protection, certain level of immunities, but they also impose certain obligations on the host state. And one of those is a special duty to protect consular premises or embassy premises or high commission premises as it is. So first and foremost, the protection of the US Consulate was a duty on Pakistan and Pakistani officials, and clearly that was not fully met. And of course, it could be because the overwhelming number of protesters, their force was so much that the security arrangement was inadequate, or it could be something else. But anyway, that is the number one thing. Second is, what type of protections do diplomatic or embassy officials have in such situations? And this again is governed by these same treaties, and there are different degrees of protection. So the highest degree is full diplomatic immunity, which is accorded to your highest level diplomats, your ambassador, your high commissioner, and their family members, and then some other diplomats within the accredited diplomats to that embassy. And this immunity, as well as others such as consular immunity, would in essence give you protection from the exercise of criminal jurisdiction of the host state. Now, what I mean by that is that the host state's police, even if you commit a crime openly in public, the host state's police wouldn't be able to arrest you. The courts would not be able to try you. You wouldn't be able to go to jail. That would be, you would be immune from that. The second is technical immunity or functional immunity, if you will, where technical staff at these consulates or these embassies, it could be a driver, for example, and they have immunity as long as what they've done is within the course of their official duties. If it's something they've done on their free time, they went to a restaurant and were having dinner with a friend and got into a brawl and hurt somebody or killed somebody, they would be tribal. They would not have that immunity, and so this whole state would be able to exercise criminal jurisdiction over them. After that, what you have is bilateral agreements. Now, US Marine staff would not necessarily get the type of diplomatic immunity as such. I don't think that's really what applies here, but it could be bilateral agreements. Now, usually when the US stations its forces in any country, they have something known as a status of forces agreement. And usually this is for bigger deployments, when they have a base there like in Afghanistan or in Japan or in South Korea, places like that, you get status of forces agreements, which is an agreement with the U.S. government and the domestic and the host state, and they outline what type of privileges and immunities do U.S. forces in that country have, and usually they include something like protection from criminal prosecution, and that is something that has often been very troubling. We've had some very serious allegations against U.S. military personnel in a number of countries, Japan and a number of others. We've had a number of violations of basic human rights that take place. Afghanistan was a major example like that. So in those situations, that status of forces agreement or that bilateral agreement that a country has with the US would apply. Now, I'm not aware of any such agreement that the Pakistani government has entered into with the US government. I'm sure there must be something along these lines, perhaps, but that would govern situations like this. Then what you have is domestic law. And since this took place in Pakistani territory, obviously Pakistani law would apply. Pakistan, you would file an FIR, a first information report, which could then be, the police could investigate the situation. If they feel that a crime took place, that this was not merely, self-defense or something along those lines, then they can, request, or through the Foreign Office, request that whatever immunity these Marines have is withdrawn. Is that going to happen? Is that likely? First of all, I don't even think Pakistan is going to request that. Secondly, I don't think that is likely, given the current situation that we're in. Nor is the U.S. ever going to allow that. We've seen this happen in the past. We had the Raymond Davis situation as well. We have had a number of other situations where diplomatic staff, the host state, the sending state is not willing to withdraw that immunity. They'd rather have those individuals come back to their own country and be safe there. And the final option is that if these military personnel, they are subject to their own country's military code of justice, right? So the U.S. military code of justice is what governs U.S. Marines wherever they are in the world. And so if they have violated that code, certainly they could be tried within the military hierarchy there and court-martialed for this. Is that likely to take place? I don't think so. Given usually these things are in the heat of the moment and they're judged accordingly and given a lot of leeway. So I don't think they will really be judged accordingly that way. Now, ultimately, it's going to be very difficult to really assess what happened and whether anybody's going to be held accountable, because we don't know what the facts on the ground are. And if this was a protest that had turned violent, was attacking the premises, if there was some level of, say, weapons that were involved, the protesters had weapons or they were firing weapons or something along those lines, then even under Pakistani law, this would not really be a crime as such. And so that's something worth viewing there. Again, we will only have answers once this is properly investigated, if at all. Thank you.